Mama told me when I was young, come sit beside me, yeah, my only son. Well, listen closely, yeah.
Hey, and welcome to the next episode. What is this, episode 6?
We're moving up.
Wow. We're only going to do 100, though. We're going to cap it at 100.
We said 100.
Yeah, at least, well, yeah, or at least 10. So tonight's episode is going to be about how Lynyrd Skynyrd was formed, or the legend of it anyway. A lot of kind of cool stories about how tough Ronnie was.
And legends are the most fun to talk about. The most fun.
I don't know how much of this stuff is true, but it is kind of fun. And we've heard a lot of different things, and some things I think are probably truer than others. But basically, these guys started playing together like in 1965 in My Backyard was, I think, the first band name.
I think that's true.
Yeah. And they were all friends from Jacksonville. And what's cool about it is the legend of Lynyrd Skynyrd has influenced a lot of other musicians. Their music, how they lived, the songs that they wrote, what they were about, has kind of epitomized, Southern music since that time.
Well, it's because they wrote about their lives and themselves, and that makes them original punk, don't it?
Well, some people think that. In fact, tonight what we're going to talk about is this record. It's the Drive-By Truckers 2001 Southern Rock Opera, a record that it had a huge effect on me. In fact, from Street Survivors until this record, there were just some small things in Southern music that really got to me that, I think the Black Crowes, the Georgia Satellites maybe. But for me, Southern music was kind of not a factor, until I heard this record in 2001. And it was sort of a changer for me. The Southern Rock Opera is a concept record, kind of based on Lynyrd Skynyrd. But what I'd like to do is play an interview from 2001, before the record was released, with Patterson Hood, who was really the main guy of the Drive-By Truckers. So let Patterson Hood tell you about this record, but more importantly, let Patterson tell you about his idea of the legend of Lynyrd Skynyrd.
I usually play in a band. I always kind of avoided that whole little singer-songwriter thing because I didn't really feel like I could. I just didn't want to come off like Harry Chapin or nothing. No offense to Harry Chapin, because he was a wonderful man. He raised lots and lots of money for humanitarian causes. It just wasn't me. I'm not going to die sitting at a train stop on the way to a fundraiser. I'm going to die in some hotel room with some teenage girl. But that's what I thought anyway. I was a teenager and I read The Hammer of the Gods and was like, yeah, that's what I want. And somehow doing the whole little singer-songwriter thing just didn't fit into my plan. But the band decided to take the spring off because we're finishing our record and we've been working on it forever. I was driving down the road 6 years ago, minding my own business. Oh shit, over that, longer than 6 years. It was in March of 1995. And I was on the way from Athens, Georgia to Florence, Alabama, where I grew up. And I had a good friend of mine in the car. His name was Earl Hicks. And Earl ain't no good, y'all. He ain't no good. Don't yell and hoop and holler. He ain't no good. And we're sitting in the car and we're talking. And that High Times had just come out. There's an issue of High Times that talked about how Courtney Love actually killed Kurt Cobain, which probably did happen. I mean, you know, that's gonna be the downfall of us all. Some mean-ass woman. And they're gonna make it look like suicide. Collect all that insurance for something. Collect our royalties forever. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, we're driving down the road and we're talking about that, what a good movie it would make. And I'm like, you know, but I know a better movie than that, and that's the Lynyrd Skynyrd story. God damn, there is a movie there. And Earl, who like me grew up a punk rocker, not necessarily appreciating Lynyrd Skynyrd, but he was still younger than me, so he was a little further from being able to dig it. And he's like, Lynyrd Skynyrd? I'm like, oh yeah. It's like, you know, they were like the ultimate punk band. Because they grew up poor, pissed off, and they started playing together. None of them knew how to play. Ronnie was like a good fighter, you know, a good boxer, and he's like, well, so he like picked what everybody played. He's like, all right, I'm gonna be the singer because I can kick your ass, and I'm gonna be in front. So if anybody rushes the stage, I got your back. You play guitar. You look like a bass player because we don't want you standing in front. You definitely need to play drums. You're going to be a roadie. You do this. You know, he kind of casted the thing, and so everybody learned their parts. And there's this like story that when they first decided they wanted another guitar player, they decided Alan Collins was the one he wanted. And so they went looking for him, and he was out riding his bike. I mean, you know, he was out riding his bike because they were kids. And he said, hey boy, I want to talk to you. And he was like 8th grade, you know, but he already had his voice had probably already changed like 4 years ago. And he said, hey boy, I want to talk to you. And Alan pissed in his pants. But he joined the band because Ronnie told him if he didn't, he'd beat his ass. And he's like, if you join the band, it's like, you know, it's like you're in the family, you're protected. So he joined the band, and that's pretty much how Ronnie casted the band. And they found this place out in the middle of the swamps that they could play in for free. And they ran an extension cord from the nearest house, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of yards out to where it was. And they powered it up. And I'm sure they're all plugged in, just, you know, shocking the shit out of each other. And they practiced there 7 days a week for years and years and years. And they outgrew their hair long because that's what all the rock stars that they looked up to did. So they wanted to do that too. And they got kicked out of school for it. So they named their band after the coach that kicked them out of school. His name was Lynyrd Skynyrd. And they added a D and changed it to Y's instead of, you know, the rest is history. I mean, what's more punk rock than naming your band after the fucker that kicks you out of school? And so, I mean, they had a song about gun control. I mean, their song, you know, they're probably, and the more I studied it, the more I realized how misunderstood the whole story was, and how no one really understood, because they just knew every time they turned on the radio, they heard Freebird, and they got pissed about it because they were tired. They wanted to hear the Replacements, you know. I was there too, because I was definitely all about the Replacements, and really pissed off that all you heard on the radio is Freebird, and it went on forever. And now I hear it and I go, God damn, that's fucking beautiful. If I could only write a song like that, and if anyone has any doubts, there's something you can do for like $3 that will change your life forever. It's called Freebird the Movie, and it's a documentary about Lynyrd Skynyrd towards the very end, and which they were like on the upswing. They weren't like headed towards bloated rock and roll excess. They were like coming out of it and getting their shit together and getting lean and mean and ready to fight. And it's footage of them absolutely blowing the Stones off the stage at Knebworth in London in front of like hundreds of thousands of people. And the crowd was so fanatical after the set, the Stones stalled for 3 hours before they came out and then got booed. And if you see the footage, you won't doubt it. And everyone I've ever showed it to was like, Skynyrd, that's what's a redneck shit, you know. And then by the end of it, they're like, but the shot of Ronnie Van Zant on his little boat fly fishing, telling about how he wrote Freebird, and he's like, you know, I just figured what's more free than a bird. So, God damn, if that's not the essence of what fucking rock and roll and punk rock should be about. And so anyway, we talked about it, what a great movie we'd make, but we'd never get permission to use the music from the Skynyrd estate, and so we figured we'd have to make it like a fictional story and just base it on their story. And Earl had the beautiful idea of naming the fictional band Betamax Guillotine, because of the rumors that what really killed Ronnie Van Sant was when the plane crashed, the Betamax machine mounted in the back of the plane flew forward and took his head off, which isn't even, actually, I don't even think even true, but we're going to name the band Betamax Guillotine. And so we started talking about the movie, but we don't know how to make a movie, and we ain't got no money to make a movie, but I got this band, and goddamn if we can't make a record about it. And so we decided to make a rock opera, a Southern rock opera, what the world needs now. And it's finished, it's mixed, it's recorded, it's mastered. We're getting the artwork together as we speak. I look like I'm right up here playing, but I'm actually working on the artwork while I'm talking to you right now. And the record's going to come out this fall. We turned down our record deal because what they were going to offer us sucked and it was going to fuck us over. We were going to be sitting there owing a bunch of money to a bunch of motherfuckers who can't even sell the best record of the last 10 years, which was the Glands record last year. Fuck those people. So we decided we're going to make this record, we're going to put it out ourselves. And we'll probably sell 20 or 30 of them, and I don't care. The song
Patterson Hood, he can tell a story, and he can make it the funniest shit you've ever heard. We love to hear stories from Patterson Hood. He's one of a kind.
And Patterson's father worked where? Muscle Shoals
Muscle
Sound.
Shoals Studio.
Right? I
Yeah.
mean, he and Jimmy Johnson were co-owners, I think.
They were co-owners.
And the Swampers from Sweet Home Alabama were based in their studio. And I think that Patterson's father he played trombone and saxophone and even bass. And was he on that record? I'm not sure exactly. But he was on a lot of records. He played with the Allman Brothers. Dwayne Allman was part of that house band before.
That's true.
The Allman Brothers. So anyway, a lot of history. Aretha Franklin recorded there. The Rolling Stones. I mean, it's pretty amazing the things that happened in that studio. And that's where Patterson grew up, was in Muscle Shoals at that studio that his father owned, and all this music came through. But anyway, I digress. The story Patterson told is pretty great.
Can you imagine the stories coming from his father to him, with all these people that he was associated with?
Wouldn't it be cool to talk to David Hood?
My gosh.
Dave, if you're watching, we'll come there and film. It'd be great. But yeah, so he kind of grew up in it. But as he says, he, in the 80s, he's a punk rock guy, right? He's wanting to hear Paul Westerberg and the Replacements. And you heard way more of Freebird in the mid-80s than you did something like, That Smell. Or my favorite off that record, Ain't No Good Life, which was a Steve Gaines song. More Steve Gaines coming soon. I thought that Patterson's story about Ronnie chasing Alan and beating up people, and I don't know, I just thought that was kind of cool.
Ronnie was a thug. He was a hired gun, is what he was. He was hiring people that was going to make his band.
He was a bully.
He was a bully, but he had a goal. He had a dream.
Yeah.
And he was a musician. Ronnie grew up with music in his life.
And we'll talk about it later, but I think Ronnie saw Paul Rodgers with Free in Jacksonville, and that was his favorite vocalist. He wanted to be a Paul Rodgers kind of guy. So I don't know how Paul Rodgers was on stage, because I never saw him on stage, but Ronnie was very heavily influenced by that, and he just happened to have these talented friends and everything. So just so you know, the record that Patterson was talking about, Southern Rock Opera, became the Rolling Stone Record of the Year. Pretty good. He was talking about it might only sell 10 or 20 copies, and it might have, but it was the best record out that whole year, according to Rolling Stone. And as you know, Drive-By Truckers were a 3-guitar band, just like Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Lynyrd Skynyrd was 3-guitar band, so
Yeah.
Lynyrd Skynyrd was heroes, and they were bands set up to become heroes.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of got that from the Allman Brothers, I guess. But anyway, a lot of the stuff is the bands were all had a kinship together and worked together and played together. Anyway, that's what we want to talk about tonight. We have some cool stuff coming up. Don't forget about Leon Wilkinson's birthday party, where you have the members of Rosalind Collins Band celebrating. That video is to subscribers only. It will be released sometime this summer, and we'll give you a link to it. Until then, we'll just see you next time.